Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee on the 23rd of January 2018. I don't know, it's still usual to say a Happy New Year to you since it's the first committee, but there's been that many. Obviously, we put our condolences to Councillor Maitland for the sad loss of our son, and that's replicated right across the council as well. Can I remind members to switch their phones off, just on cue there, and that I'll remind members that this meeting will be recorded and is available for public listening. We have a relatively short agenda, usually 22 reports or more on E&I this morning, but can I remind members that any operational award issues are not a matter for this committee and should be dealt with out with the meeting. That being said, Nick, can you give us the Sederunt apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've had apologies from Councillors Wood, Gilroy and Sloan, and there are 18 members present.
Thank you very much. Do any members have any conflicts of interest? Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Chair. As elected member at the VM2 meeting to do with the Newton Stewart flood defence scheme, I will be declaring an interest at that point because I was in attendance there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members? Okay. Can we go on to the minute of meeting of 21st November 2017 for approval? Ian?
No, happy enough. I think it reflects what's here. I know there's no matters arising, but I think it's 8.4 of that minute. It's on page 5, just from memory. Let me find out. Just 8.4. I wonder if, I don't recollect getting a copy of that. Just interested. It was Councillor Johnston and myself, I think, that particular item up. Interested to see what the kind of reaction was from that. Where will we see that at some point in time? So I know we don't have matters arising. That was the only real point, I think, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we've had meetings about this, and once we've completed that discussion, we'll advise members of the outcome. Thank you very much.
So that agreed amounts. Okay. Moving on to item number 4, then the Economy, Environment, Infrastructure Monitoring Report 2017-18 for the period ended 31st of December 2017. This report provides with an overview of key budget monitoring issues and projected performance for the current financial year based on the position as at 31st of December 2017. The report provides details of progress made against the agreed action plan to address the projected budget shortfalls and to seek to balance the economy, environment, infrastructure budget in both the current and subsequent financial years. Whilst the current position reflects a significant improvement on previously reported figures, it's important to recognise that a potential budget shortfall of $228,000 is currently projected. Further measures therefore being identified and progressed by the EI management team. The Director and his management team will take any questions of the report unless you've got anything further to add to it, Alistair?
Nothing further to add, Chair, at this stage. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 questions. My first question is in regards to item, or the 4.2 for our infrastructure and transportation. It says in this report that it's based on the assumption that the expenditure on winter maintenance during the rest of this year can be contained within the current operational budget. And my question is, how are we in terms of our budgets and the recent winter events that's affected us in the last couple of weeks? Is that budget still intact? So that's my first question. Shall I come back on my second?
Yep.
Okay.
On the winter service budget, obviously we've been very active over the last several weeks. I really feel the staff have done a wonderful job right across the council. That includes communities as well who have been helping us on footways, and of course janitors, educational assets have all been working hard to help and keep the place safe. The budget is looking to start to be well spent up, and we are currently reviewing all of that, and once we get a final figure on that, I can write to members and advise them where we are with that. Obviously, if we do overspend, there is a contingency held centrally that can address an overspend in that budget.
Thank you.
Just before your second question, I think it's right that we recognise the work that the staff have done over the winter period in both communities in the ENI, and congratulate them on that work. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Congratulations to the staff. My second question is in regards to Appendix 1. Now, both myself and Councillor Ross Surtees here have been in touch and working closely with Kirkmaiden Community Trust in terms of Dromore Harbour. Now, I just was looking for some clarification because the report here says that there's a balance carried forward of £37,000. At our previous meeting on the 21st of November, it was agreed that the balance should be set aside, should be restricted to £10,000 and that the £27,000 would be released. However, as I say, we've got the figure 37. So I'm just looking for assurances that is that 37 available, because I understand that there is legal costs. So it's just for clarification. Thank you.
Caroline?
Thank you, Chair. No, the 37 is actually what was carried forward. Obviously, 27 of that will be used to balance. So it will be the 10 that is left, which for the legal costs.
But if I could further add, Chair, we did agree at the last meeting that we would keep that service reserve under review, depending on what the community ask or what the community present to the council. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. So it's under review, but the funding is still there. Thank you.
Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. I suppose the obvious question that has to be asked is in regards to Fact 228. It's 31st of December. It says, I think it says within the report that it's these figures that we have the date in front of us that we have is relevant up to the end of the last calendar year, 2017. So we've got another 3 or 4 months left, really. It looks like we're going to hit an overspend. What's the process in regards to that? What we've got to do about that? And when we'll actually see that coming back, so we know how we'll actually fulfil that decision.
Alistair?
Obviously, we're doing everything possible to lower that 228. You're quite right to point out this is the monitoring as of the 31st of December. We are putting stringent controls on our discretionary spend, and we have a mechanism in place where heads of service must sign any expenditure off. And if there is a real need for it, I'm also involved in agreeing the expenditure. So hopefully when we bring all that together, we'll further improve the 228. And when will you get that? I think you'll have an idea of that. We can do a report just where we are at our next meeting in March, but the final outturn will be June committee.
I think that recommendation on 2.3, that a detailed paper will be brought to the next committee on the current budgets, may give you that information. Thanks,
Chairman. I suppose that probably more answers it. It sits here under that recommendation, but I just think if we've got to cap and hand back to either the full council or policy and resource in regard to try and get this deficit filled, we need to be aware of that. It's the members that need to be looking at that, considering that actual decision.
Yes, Chair, you're quite right to point out that we are coming with a report to the March meeting which will look at the sustainability of the EEI budget and balancing it on its future and on a way forward to keep it balanced. And we'll provide information at that time on the current situation.
Anybody else? Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was a couple of questions again. One was just on 4.3.2 regarding the building cleaning trading account in particular, and it was just in relation to how we apply or track the cost of cleaning both council buildings and or external buildings that we have a trading account for. Is there a cost per building that's calculatable on what needs to be done to clean it, and should that remain fairly constant unless sort of ways of cleaning change? And is that something that we can scrutinise in more detail and possibly out with this committee? Secondly, the tracker for the implementation of the energy efficiency in buildings in terms of the renewable heat incentive, that seems to again to be not quite realised. Is there a different reason for the delay this time?
Caroline?
Thanks, Chair. If I could answer the first one, the building cleaning one first. Yes, basically each building is assessed as to the number of hours of cleaning required to meet the standards of that building. That is fairly fixed, and the direct costs are identified per building, and then obviously there's some management charge on top of that, which is distributed evenly. I think it would be better if you wanted to speak to me. I've got a big spreadsheet that you can have a look at on it. And the external contracts are done in a very similar way, but obviously with a small profit element built in to recoup our contribution to overheads and hopefully a little bit extra.
Thank you. I'll follow that up with you in your spreadsheet. Thank you.
Alistair's going to answer the energy saving.
On the energy, apologies, we don't have anything further to report in there, but these figures are still under review, and we're looking at them, and we'll complete that as soon as we can.
Jim?
It's Appendix 4, Chair, financial assistance to small businesses, 20k funding we used to meet the running cost of the stove. I thought that came from the Town Centre Regeneration Fund. I thought we funded this from another source, and a supplementary to that is, are all small businesses aware that this fund's available to apply to, and is there a specific criteria?
Thank you, Chair. As far as I know, the previous head of economic development had agreed to fund the stove from the small business fund for a period of 3 years. This being the last of the 3 years. This may be in addition to any funding that the Town Centre Regeneration Fund gives. There's certainly work done to provide small businesses with the information, but as you can see, the level of funding that we've actually got available is so small that I think we haven't been publicising it too much. 20,000 isn't going to actually spread too far.
Jan, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. In fact, there are a range of business funds available. They are loans though, and they're done via the Scottish Government. This particular fund is a very small fund. It should not be confused with the budgets that we have for capital projects, and they are the projects that I'm aware of. What is being spoken about at the moment is funding that we have for works in the Dumfries Town Centre. It isn't regeneration funding. The last meeting, it was actually approved as part of the ongoing economic development capital program, so it isn't a grant scheme per se.
Jimmy, you want to come back?
It's a throwaway line, Chair, and I wouldn't necessarily need Jan to respond to it, but I hope this is not some slush fund that senior officers have, and when Jan says, or when Alistair says that it was a 3-year funding by the head of economic development, I hope it was also supported by this committee, and that the head of economic development is not just wondering about making undertakings to spend money without the endorsement of this committee.
Unusual for you to say it's no throwaway line. Yeah. Mal.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Jan, I think your answer there's actually raised more questions than you've answered. What actually is this £20,000 for?
Jan?
Specifically, I don't have the details, but I'm happy to get it for you. I didn't come equipped for this particular question.
This actually is a reserve that is a leftover from a decision by the committee 3 years ago. So there was £135,000 added to the budget 3 years ago. Most of that has been spent in accordance with the committee's rules. I'm obviously not being here at that time, I don't know, but I'm sure that it did get committee approval at that time for the stove. This is the residual amount left. that hasn't yet been taken up.
Alistair, do you want to come?
Yes, Chair. What we'll do again is we'll write to members, we'll look at the history, and we'll give members a position on how that money was allocated.
Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Given the level of shortfall in planning income, are there any indications that the level of development is likely to improve in the coming year?
Alistair?
As part of our plan, looking at the sustainability of the budget and going forward, and the report that we'll give you at the next meeting, we are looking at trends and we're looking at profiles and we're looking at the economy to see if there's any hint of that improving. Obviously, there are good news nuggets out there. The new agency, for example, is getting in place. The interim arrangements are in place, and that's moving at pace. And obviously, the Borderlands growth deal, it's moving at pace as well. So hopefully, these pieces of good news will help the economy locally, but we'll have more information to give members when we come with our action plan. But we are looking at it very closely.
Steve, have you got anything to add to that?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the only thing I was going to add to that is that as we progress LDP2 as well, there's some 170 sites for future development identified within that. So in combination with the factors that Alistair's just outlined, hopefully the impact of the Borderlands deal and the impact of the new South of Scotland agency, we will see an upturn in development activity over the coming years. But this is one of the challenges that we have, is trying to look ahead and forecast and predict what's going to be happening with our fee income. And Alistair's already referred to the fact that we'll be bringing a report to the March committee, and that will highlight that one of the challenges is not just about under recovery of income that we're currently experiencing, it's the severe fluctuations that we sometimes experience from one year to the other.
Okay, members, we'll go to the recommendations then. We are asked to note 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 and 2.5. Onward. Okay. Moving then on to item number 5, which is infrastructure, street lighting, spend to save and vehicle fleet asset classes capital programme 2017-18 finance progress monitoring report. This report provides members with a financial and progress update for the projects and programmes contained within the 2017-18 capital programmes of the asset classes of infrastructure and vehicle fleet and street lighting spend to save. I think we should also congratulate the street lighting on their COSLA award for what they have done for us over the last couple of years. Have you anything to add, Director?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we just at the end of last week, we've been awarded a further £70,000 from the Strategic Timber Transport Fund, and we can match that with £30,000 to give us another £100,000 to spend on the B709 north of Eskdale-Muir, and we would like to add in an additional recommendation to accept that funding. So I think, Chair, if you...
Yeah, we'll consider that once we've had the debate. Is there anything else? Okay, members, any questions? Katie? Then Ian.
Thank you, Chair. It's not so much a question, but actually it's more of an observation on the report, and I just wanted to... There's a lot of really positive things in this report, and I just wanted to thank officers for their hard work on this in regards to a couple of issues that are very positive, certainly within my area. The Sparling Bridge in Newton Stewart, and the fact that there's been a date given for completion of late summer 2018 it will be really welcome news to the community within Newton Stewart. So thank you for that. And also, having attended the Outdoor Access Forum in late December, there was an update on the Rins Coastal Path, and that was given by our Countryside Development Officer, Brian Scott, and actually that's progressing fantastically well, and it's highlighted in the report in the appendix on page 52 at all the programmed works that's happening with that. So it's going to be a huge benefit to the west of the region, and I just wanted to congratulate officers on that. And just as a final point, just to say that I'm looking forward to the reports for the Harbours Committee, which is going to be taking place on Thursday, which I'll be chairing. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Ian, then Stephen.
Thanks, Chairman. A couple of points, Chairman, just to pick up on, if you don't mind, a wee bit parochial, but a very, very light touch. And there's one in your ward I'd like to touch on, Glentarris. I think I have to make some comments in regards to that. So, with page 40, the B6, I think I've wrote 357, I think it's 537. It's just outside Annan at East Riggs. It talks about the drainage works and such like, and I know there's other fellow councillors in the room been lobbied heavily recently. Here it is, it's page 40. It's the very bottom, Andale and Estill, the second in the large box, and it says B6357, full length Annan to Holly, ditching crossings, offlets, etc. I think we still have, after Scottish Water went to quite an extensive survey, and I think I've done a report in the back, there's still further work to be done there. Just asked that can the council recognise it through this committee, and we look further into that going into next year. Is that just a point, Chairman? Page 56, back of the hill, it refers to drainage there. Mentioned that back in March, really should have been done last summer. There's somebody still getting flooded up there. That needs to be done. It's a serious problem. So we can get that done. I see there's a name allocated to that who's no longer in that job. So just leave that one with you as well, Chairman. And if that's, I'm not really looking for any answers coming back on that, but certainly when it comes to Glentarris, Chairman, if you beg me, I know it's your ward, beg my forgiveness in that regard, I'd be a bit of an intrusion to a degree, but these things I've picked up on that I can't really no mention. So we've seen this for a number of years now. I know you've been heavily involved in it yourself, Chairman, as a local member, making as much progress as you possibly can. But there's some points I'd really like just to put out there, and for us for the officials just to pick up on, and maybe meet up in a different format, a different way, but just adjust to what I'm talking about. So we've got a caution against that. I think it's on page 23, paragraph 3.6.1, up to £1.2 million. No, so if you do I went up over the Christmas time, because I'd been lobbied myself as well as the leader of the Executive Group, just to say, could have a look at it, please. But I knew it was in your capable hands as well as your other fellow councillors, Chairman. So I had a quick survey myself. 60 linear metres is the maximum kind of work up there, which I would say 15 or 20 metres where the slippage has actually occurred. And there's been a lot of flooding, so on and so forth, and the road's been closed off. So 1.2 million. So I looked at that and compared that to other figures in the past that we've looked at. One of the ones we've seen come through was a government project, wasn't it? And I've referred it in the past, which was the Hargrove bypass, so we're looking at a 4 metre wide road approximate at Glentarris, where like 50 to 20 metres of that, so I'm saying the road slipped, and a £1.2 million. Well, that works out at £20,000 per linear metre. If you wanted to take the whole road up, relay it, put it back, doing new services, so on and so forth, about 20k per linear metre. The Hargrove, which is 600 metres, 3.6 kilometres, you've got about a 28 metre wide road, you've got your drainage, your suds, your structures, your underpasses, so on and so forth, and that comes about £2,500 per linear metre. I think we need to get on top of this, Chairman, and that's the only point I really want to make. There's something at odds here that just isn't stacking up, certainly from what I can see. I can understand there was a political will to try and draw money for the Scottish Government, but this needs to be resolved, put in order and get the road reopened. I suppose that's where I really am coming from. I'm just trying to put forward the strongest message I possibly can.
I think from my perspective, I've certainly been talking to the officer about this, and as have other members in the ward. You want to come back on the geotechnical side of things, what the issues are now?
I think in terms of the project, Chair, thank you. The original cost estimate when we were looking for funding from Scottish Government was a number of schemes where there was damage in that particular set of storms over the winter, and there were some quite rough cost estimates provided to Scottish Government, and they were happy with them in terms of the detail that we provided in terms of the allocation and the spend against the schemes that we'd identified. I think we'd identified, particularly in this scheme, that it was going to be quite a difficult geotechnical solution, and the costs estimated against a kind of rough estimate at the time were set at that level to try and cover all the contingencies. And certainly we did look at a number of options, and we looked at possibly realigning sections of the road as well in the options report that was prepared by our colleagues in engineering design. What we have done is, realising that it is probably quite a complex geotechnical solution, we've actually pooled, and we've set that out in the report. We've halted the process that we're going through in terms of the tender for the design and build, and decided that it would be much safer in terms of making sure we do get value for money, that we employ a geotechnical specialist consultant for the design input. And that's an expertise, or a level of an expertise, that we don't have currently within the council. We have in the past, but not at the present time. So we want to progress on the basis of developing a design, and that's certainly something, if members are interested in that design, we can share that with members. We will always be driving it to try and get a value for money solution, and it will cost as much as it takes to deliver a sustainable solution going forward, to try and maintain access on that part of the network.
Just so that you're aware, I mean, I have had discussions with roads officers as well, and we're looking at starting in March and finishing in November time, and that has been agreed with members from the ward. We had a meeting with roads officers on that particular thing. Jim and then Katie.
Thanks, Chair. Delighted you've agreed to introduce parochial stuff. It helps me tremendously. Page 20, 345, 346, in particular 351, intrigue me. I find it difficult to discuss this matter in the current situation, given that the 13th September 2016 report was exempt. But what I will say in its public knowledge is that SEPA produced a report on the contaminated land in Wanlock Head, and it's on their website, it's in the public domain. It advises folk not to eat fish from the river. It advises them not to eat vegetables they grow. And as far as I know, since the last report, nothing has been done to address this issue. And I realise that the golf course is the subject of the paper here, and I have no issue with that and what's been said here. But I would like a progress report on what we're doing about contaminated land, especially contaminated land where there's a clearly identified public health risk. These papers are in the public domain, and currently it would seem that we're at a stalemate, or in a position where we're not taking them that forward. And I know that ours is an oversea because it's land owned by Buccleuch Estates, but nevertheless, I attend the Wanlock Head Village Committee. It's often the subject to the discussion there because they're concerned about the long-term impact. And maybe for everybody that's got contaminated land that featured in the previous report, either another exempt report or a report on what we're doing, however best it's done, I do think we should be seen to be moving this forward, because it's clearly an issue, not just for Castle Douglas, but for a number of communities in Dumfries and Galloway.
Stephen,
we can certainly bring an update report on contaminated land, on the projects, on the prioritisation, and where we're at with them in terms of the council's current thinking, and update on the kind of history and in terms of decisions that have been made in the past on the Wanlock Head location.
Just to come back, I think it'd be fair to all members if it's every bit of contaminated land, because the report contained, I think, 11 different sites. But and if not only, Stephen, what we've done in the past, but what's proposed, because I think the status quo in some situations isn't maybe just the best outcome for these communities.
Okay, we'll go forward with that. Katie, then Stephen, and then Jeff.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me come back in again. My question is really in regards to the Strone Bridge scheme at Glen Trool. I note that it was completed on the 26th of October, and certainly as someone who goes up to Glen Trool and mountain bikes, it's fantastic to have that bridge back in working order. I'm slightly concerned because I've been made aware that there's issues around possibly the pointing of the wall, and after the winter there is debris that's actually come out of that pointing, I'm aware of. And my question is, has that been inspected, or will it be inspected? Because obviously it was only completed in the 26th of October, and first frosts and things, it may just be a case that this is just what happens, but I was just looking for reassurances, because I have actually been made aware of there might be potential issues around the mortar and the pointing of that.
Duncan, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, there's at least 2 structures we're aware of where there's been a bit of loss of pointing. I think the one at Templand as well is another one that I'm aware of. So we're actively monitoring those, and we'll take them up with the contractor to have remedial works carried out during the maintenance period.
Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. 2 things. One is the Cowden's Railway Bridge situation. Obviously, this is one which could, well, we don't yet know because we haven't agreed anything with the other stakeholders in terms of ongoing responsibility and maintenance, but clearly there's a risk here. Do you have a contingency in place to address anything while we're negotiating with Transport Scotland and Network Rail, both of whom are famous for their speedy negotiations? So I'm just wanting that assurance. Second thing is to do with the footway at Moffat, the feasibility study. So it's just to get a wee bit of clarity. Is that within existing resources at the moment? At least the feasibility study itself, will that be included as part of our work streams without additional cost until we're presented with what the study reveals? Because obviously it's a long-standing issue of concern, and also will it tie in with the community action plan recently produced in Moffat, which identified improving active travel networks as one of the priorities for the town and area? Thank you.
Stephen?
In terms of the situation with Cowden's Railway Bridge, my understanding is that Network Rail undertake regular inspections so that we would know if there was particular safety issues with spalling of concrete. The situation we have there is that there were a number of structures, I think it's 5 in total, on the all-purpose route that the council were required to maintain after the road was detrunked with the opening of the motorway at that location. And we've started discussions with Network Rail and with Transport Scotland as to the suitability of the local roads authority actually having to maintain these structures. Given the size of the Cowden's Bridge, it's on a skew because of the alignment of the old dual carriageway, and it's an over large structure that is required for the all-purpose route. We were wanting to explore with them the possibility of who is the most appropriate. We just want to test them, push them a bit on who is the most appropriate authority to maintain these structures. We've identified that repairs could be quite a significant part of the council's structures budget for the whole region, which tends to be about £1 million per annum. And I think the costs in the report are indicating it could be up to about half of that would be required to effect the repairs. So we are working with Network Rail as best we can in terms of getting access when we need to do the inspections to scope out the works, but also to test with them which authority is best placed to fund to these repairs.
Quickly on that point, the 500k that you're indicating as a sort of annual maintenance budget is, I think what I'm trying to get at is there's a piece of work due to take place in March to look at this, or to start looking at this. So are we talking about how many financial years at 500k might we have to factor in that contingency, given the significance that represents to the overall regional budget?
We've identified that the works, it's a one-off in terms of the works that are required up to about that level. But what we have found is that this could be an ongoing problem in terms of deterioration and spalling of concrete over what is an over-large structure that requires to maintain, given that it's only the local road now that's crossing the railway bridge. So it's not a per annum cost, but what we're saying is that in the future, this structure and the other structures over the railway, we just wanted to test who was the most appropriate authority to maintain them.
Did you get your answer on the...
And the part about the Moffat feasibility study for the paths?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the Moffat feasibility study, as detailed in the report, came about from a notification from the Transport Minister and through Sustrans about a concerned resident over the existing cycle facilities between BTIC and Moffat. So, together with Sustrans, they've agreed to some match funding for a feasibility study that we can undertake probably in February to look at the 2 options there, obviously being an offline route through the fields to Station Park. Now, that was previously looked at about 10 years ago by the council and was discounted because we had issues with the landowner and the other option being maybe to widen the footway along the A701 into Moffat itself. So the feasibility study will include some consultation with the local community and perhaps the school as well to see what the best solution is.
Thanks for that. Is there an indication of the sort of the quantum, the sort of amount of funding and match funding, etc.? And also, could I maybe request through officers that the steering group for the Community Action Plan and the Reforming Community Council, which will meet for the first time next Tuesday, I think, could maybe be part of that discussion, given that part of their community-led consultation identified that as a priority and they might have some valuable input?
Well, we'll certainly put that as an action for officers to go and talk to. Yeah. Okay. Jeff, Ian, if you don't mind, I'll get Graham in first, then yourself.
Thanks, Chair. It's 3.62 on page 23, the off-site infrastructure associated with the new Dumfries Hospital. It's 7 weeks since the hospital opened. I know there were initially problems with parking, but I'm not aware of any problems with traffic flow at the hospital. I actually live in that general region of the town. Have there been any problems? It's just a question out of curiosity.
Anything on it?
Thank you, Chair. We actually did a traffic survey before the hospital move. There was traffic counters down on New Abbey Road, Pleasance Avenue and Park Road. We were going to reassess, do a new count in February once the traffic had sort of sorted itself out, once people had decided what way they were going to drive to the hospital, were they going to use the bypass, etc. So we're going to be carrying out a new survey in February. We have heard people have mentioned it is a bit quieter out that way, but that's maybe the time that they go to work. You know, the hospital has shift work, so maybe it is busier earlier in the mornings and at different times of the day. But we're going to certainly assess that in February once the traffic flows have established and settled down a bit.
Jeff?
I think if there had been major problems, I'm sure the local press would have alerted us.
Thank you for that. Graham?
Thanks, Chair. One of my questions, I've got two. One of them was actually the same as Jeff's there. It was about the traffic to the new hospital. The other one is, can you tell me, it's to do with the Castle Douglas Golf Club and the capping of this contaminated land. This land was capped some time ago. Have the criteria for capping land, has the criteria to do with capping of contaminated land been changed? And why has it suddenly become a problem now? I mean, we're looking at the Stewart County Council. It hasn't been there for a long time. So I'm just wondering what's brought this to light.
James, are you able to come up?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check it? In terms of the changes that are identified in the report are with the court case that has changed where the responsibility lies for the capping. So the best information available at present, which is the court case detailed in the report, says the council is no longer the responsible authority for this piece of land.
No, I'm not talking about the legal side of it. What I'm talking about is the actual capping of the land, and why has it suddenly become a problem? I mean, the land that was capped some time ago, and why is it now a problem? Has the criteria for capping of contaminated land changed? I mean, is the depth of soil to be different than it was 20, 30 years ago?
Obviously there was a report that went, a confidential report that went on the various sites across Dumfries and Galloway, which picked up the Castle Douglas site, and the current standards for landfill sites. The council look at a 600mm depth of cover across landfill sites, and the investigations on the Castle Douglas site, which was the piece of land that the golf club acquired many years ago, didn't have a full 600 depth of cover across areas of that. And I think they had undertaken some works on the site. Is that correct? Yeah, they'd undertaken some works, obviously, to try and shape the site, putting in bunkers and things like that, which would have impacted upon the depths of cover.
I think, Graham, with my limited knowledge of health, safety, environmental stuff, the Environmental Impact, the Environmental Act changed in 1990, and then there was so many other things added on after that. So I'm sure there will be something in there with regards to that type of thing. Did you want to come back?
Just briefly, my fear is that this could cost us a lot of money in legal fees, because legal departments have a bad habit of running up massive big bills. And I just urge caution.
That's doing it at work rail and depends what type of leaf they've got in the line. Ian, do you want to come on?
Just briefly add to what Graham said, I think we have to be sensitive around about the golf club as well. Obviously there's the financial details in there as well. If we were to try and impose a £500,000 capping off or remediation, I think I would imagine that would finish them. It's the last thing we want to do, but we obviously have to comply with the legislation that's there. Maybe just another quick one in regards to, it's actually, moved. Page 22, Chairman. It's at the top, I think it's 355. 355, just, it's Annan Stapleton Road Depot. Obviously that decision's been made and that's going forward, but I was in that area locally getting a tyre changed and came across the building. It's actually adjacent. There's a wall that actually, it's like a communal wall.
Is it damaged?
So I just want to make sure that we're sensitive towards that, and one just wonder as it's progressed, because of this potential, it may well affect the business as it's being raised to the ground, you could say. That the local members are kept up to speed, just what's happening there, even possibly before we get to the tender, the works tender, please.
Stephen?
Yep, I'll pass on that request to keep the local members advised of just what's happening with the works there in terms of the details.
John?
Thank you, Chair. Referring back to Castle Douglas Golf Club, a lot of it's been covered already. And I agree with what Councillor Dempster said regarding stalemates when it comes to contaminated land situations. And I'm worried that this may develop into a stalemate. I presume we're waiting to see if the original court case is going to be appealed before we move forward on this. And I would just ask that you keep local elected members up to date if there's any further developments. Thank you.
James?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, what we will do is that we will, as the report says, we will look to Castle Douglas Golf Course to come with a remediation plan, but it's about working with them as the regulatory authority rather than, forcing them, we're not in the business of forcing them out of business through this. It will be working with the golf course. But yeah, as you realise, things may change if the Supreme Court will choose to hear an appeal against this. But at the moment, we need to progress on the best available information, and that is to not fund this works ourselves.
Okay. Okay, we can go to the recommendations then, and there will be an additional one. Members are asked to note 2.1, note 2.2, note 2.3, note 2.4. We're asked to agree, I think in principle, for the inclusion of an additional scheme, because we have to do an application, I think, or there'll be some issues with funding from Sustrans. So I think I agree in principle.
Just on that, Chair, I think the officer was saying that there was effectively match funding in place, but I'm not really sure if that's maybe worth clarifying just now.
So just agree for the inclusion of the additional schemes. 2.6, note the progress. 2.7, agree to a recommendation to reprogram the proposed off-site infrastructure works associated with Dumfries Hospital, which was mentioned earlier. 2.8, agree to continue to engage with Castle Douglas Golf Course to come up with a voluntary contaminated land remediation agreement, as detailed in paragraphs 3.45 to 3.54. And the additional recommendation is agree to accept an additional allocation of £70,000 from the Strategic Timber Transport Fund for carriageway surfacing work to B709 at Davington, north of Eskdale, Muir Village. Jim?
The addition of a contaminated land report, Chair, to a future meeting.
I think we should get an action point on that to make sure that that comes to a future meeting. Members happy with that? Thank you. The next item agenda is 6, Economy, Environment, Infrastructure, Economic Development, Capital Projects Update. The purpose of this report is to provide an update of Economic Development Capital Programme 2017-20. The Head of Economic Development are here, and our team will take any questions on the report. Jan, have you got anything to add?
No, I've got nothing to add.
Director, anything?
Nothing to add, Chair, thank you.
Members, Ros?
Thank you, Chair. I note on page 77 that the East Pier is being taken, work is being undertaken over water and over land from the 8th of January to the 4th of April 2018. And I know that at the last meeting, Jan was hoping to bring a report in June. So I just want to clarify that this report is coming early, and if so, what the implications of that, and to thank her if that is the case.
The report will be coming in June. I would have liked to be coming early. We've had a delay with equipment as we've missed the barge slot. However, those are just technical things, and we've been able to accelerate other aspects of the process, and I'm confident that we will have, unfortunately I won't have the one for March, but I definitely will have the one for June because of the good progress now that we have a project officer in post.
Yeah, thank you, Jan, for that. I think it's really important in this project to be very clear about the detail of any delay that may be implied. So thanks for that, Jan.
I think that's been made clear several meetings on that one. Any other members? Ian?
I mean, just being strategic, we've been asked at 2.2 to agree to continue to support the Peter Pan Moatbury Trust in its efforts, and within the report itself it talks about us acting almost as the conduit to apply for the 600k. Due diligence question would be certainly look to support the Moatbury project, but if everything was to go Pete Tong, so to speak, how would that land in our lap? Would it affect us or not? Kind of if everything was to go the wrong way?
Jan?
Thank you. It's very clear that we are the applicant, but we're working closely with Moatbury. If things were not to happen, there is no risk to the council because essentially they would have to, we on their behalf would have to draw down the money. If the work hasn't been done, we don't draw down.
Stephen and Jim?
Yeah, just same point, but can we maybe clarify that in the recommendation 2.2 so that it's clear that we're applying on their behalf, but we're not, that's all we're doing at the moment. Thank you.
Right. Happy to do that.
Actually, just a brief one because I speak to Jan about it offline, but on page 79, the ECOS report that talks about KKDT, which is the Langholm Development Trust, it meets the aspirations of the community. Well, it's an Upper Nithsdale project, not a Gornal one, and I presume that that's taken into account, and I'm curious to why it's suddenly amber, but I'll speak to Jan offline about it.
Does that mean you're not an answer?
No, I'm just raising the issues, Chair, that's all. I'll speak to Jan about it.
Oh, okay. Ian?
I suppose looking at this again, Chairman, I maybe should have raised it earlier, but I mean, if I was just looking at it strategically, and Ross has already picked up on I think the amber warning in the the west of the region, I think looking east-west, there seems to be a clear divide there, green and amber. I would be a bit worried if I was in the west of the region. The other thing is, I think one of your bone of contentions, I think, Chairman, I'll just pick up on page 78, 3.2.6, it refers to the M74. I'll let you finish that piece off.
Yeah, thanks. You need an answer for it?
With respect to amber and green and red, essentially what we're wanting to do is ensure that we're mitigating risk all the time, and risks happen all the time. If there's a response about Chapel Cross is a very good project. I think you're talking about.
I'll make it clear, Chairman. It refers to M74. That's at Abington. The chair comes out to say 74A.
A74. Most probably is the author's aspiration rather than the chair's.
I think geography needs to be done somewhere along that line. The A74M is the actual area. Okay. Any other members? Okay, we go to the recommendation. We're asked to note 2.1. Agree 2.2, and I think Stephen mentioned by addition on that, to agree by submitting the application for funding. And 2.3, agree to receive a report on a detailed outcome. Everybody happy with that? Thank you. Now we move on to item number 7, the Economic Inclusion Programme Youth Guarantee. This report is to update members on progress made supporting the Dumfries and Galloway Youth Guarantee by delivering on key recommendations from the Scottish Government's Youth Employment Strategy of developing the young workforce. The Head of Economic Development and her team will take questions here unless you've got anything to add.
No, we have nothing more to add.
Members? Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for this report. I think there was a few questions I had just in relation to some of the funding around it. In particular, it doesn't actually mention anywhere, as far as I can see in the report, what funding we originally were given to sort of carry out some of these things, nor how much we're actually asking for. So there's no sort of quantum, if you like, to demonstrate how we're actually providing best value for the services and activities that we are actually carrying out. Clearly there's a lot of activity, but it's not clear how that's linked to budget. Similarly, in our agreed council priorities, although obviously nobody would be against developing links for education for employment for young people, it's a sort of no-brainer, but the thing is that the resourcing for that, as far as our action plan for our priorities was within existing resources. So although I quite support making sure that we get the appropriate funding for the initiatives we're carrying out, equally I think we need to be much clearer about where the funding is coming from up to now and where our priorities set out the funding has been coming from, because it does, in our agreed administration, the council plan, as it were, it's from within existing resources. I find it hard to separate that out within this report, so it's really just to get that clarity. Thank you.
There's a mix of funding. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. There is a mix of funding that we receive. Some of the funding has been has come from the council itself, who have seen priorities. So policy funding has been applied to that. We've also been able to lever in additional funds through the priorities of the Scottish Government. The Scottish Government has specific funds that it has given us to undertake priorities that they see as important, like like addressing youth employment, like addressing employabilities and skills. And for the council's priorities being economic development, in order to do the business, our businesses need a skilled workforce, and we all agree with that. What I can say with undertaking the budget process, so I will put my hands up, I'm very new to this, but I have asked, and I have a table of it, which I should have actually brought with me, but I can circulate it, which shows the funding that we have received externally for employability, the investment that the council has put in for all these elements, and it has staff and non-staff, and how it is applied, whether it's ongoing or whether it's got a finite time. The real challenge that we have with this is that the Scottish Government has given us fully funded projects to undertake, and that they're going to come to an end. Then they've brought in new particular elements like the DYW, which will run past the times that they've funded. So essentially what we're asking for in this paper is referred to, I think on page 84 in section 3.4, which is ongoing funding that will align to the DYW funding for these particular projects, so that we've got a full offer that can be then embedded in our schools, embedded in our practice, and embedded by the employers so that it can be sustainable. So what we're not coming out with a begging bowl to the council to say more money, please. What we're asking the council to do for us is to help us to be able to align everything with DYW, which is a very good program that the government has put in, and asking the government and to Slade to align that funding. So we're trying hard not to push the budgets that the council's given us, but we're asking you for a little bit of help to make it more sustainable.
Stephen, you want to come back?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's helpful. I think the data that you were talking about initially would be very helpful in this, so it would be great if you could share that, just to get a further understanding of it. Because at the end of the day, although the principle behind this and sort of mainstreaming the work that we'll be able to do with the initial funding, it makes a lot of sense, it joins a lot of things together. I think we need to actually understand how much is that? Because it doesn't actually say in the report, is that, I don't know if it's 15 million, 50,000, you know, so I don't know how I can demonstrate best value that it's been spent well. So I think that would be a great help.
If you can circulate that to all members of the committee. Malcolm, then Ian.
Thank you, Chair. It's basically around 3.3, the performance measures. I noticed we went down to 52% of the target for people up to the age of 25 being engaged, with 67.5% for the following item. And then if I link that with the employer engagement side, 2016-17 it was 186. Down 2017 we're down to 113. Given the fact that youngsters leave school in the early summer, I doubt we'll end up getting any more to bring the 113 up. I was just really wondering what the reasons behind this are. Is it a kind of lack of promoting of some of these activities? When the employer engagement thing, for a start, I mean, I'll fully admit I know nothing about it, and I'm sure there's probably quite a few people that are in the same position. And I wonder if we could spend a bit more time engaging with people on this entire area, because I get a bit concerned in Dumfries and Galloway that our biggest export's going to be our youngsters, and I think it's important that we try and train and retain young people in our area.
Thank you, Chair. It is complex, and one of or two of the statistics I can actually give you an update on from this morning's data. In the performance measures on page 84, the number of young people engaged with the service at 3.3.1, we're actually up to 96% of our target now. And the number of training and employment opportunities, we're now up to 83% of our target. And also on a previous page, just to give you the background, which I'll come to the wage incentive one, on the first page, on page 81, it talks about a participation measure. And we had in 2017, 92.5% of our 16 to 19-year-olds in employment, training or education. And I just checked this morning, and it was 93.6% for our current 16 to 19-year-olds. So part of the challenge with the wage incentive is we're doing such a good job in schools with finding young people positive destinations that there are fewer and fewer unemployed young people.
And the employers?
And the employers, we have our employer engagement team that work hard with them, but there are just difficulties accessing that report, accessing that funding for young people.
And can I add, there's been some terrific work that's been undertaken with the team and with the DYW project director, working with specific sectors. So just to let you know that there's the DYW project director, who's hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, has already started to engage with the construction industry as well as engineering industry, and this has also been done in collaboration with with the business team, what we would also like to point out is the aim is for that group to work with more employers, and that is their role to do. That's the added value from what the council does.
Sean wants to come in the same point, Ian, and I'll bring in, okay?
Yes, just with regards to engagement, there's probably an ideal opportunity with this year being Year of the Young People to maybe link in with that. I just wondered if you have plans for that, or if you could maybe just say something on that.
Well,
Hi, thank you. Yes, we are involved with the Year of Young People. We have representatives who are sitting on the steering group, and we have a number of plans in place, including being part of Youth Beats to promote.
Thanks very much, Ian.
Thanks, yeah. I suppose just to pick up on, maybe it's probably pointing at yourself, Jim, and maybe take advice for yourself. In regards to 2.2, we've been asked to note the concerns over the sustainability of the outcomes and projects to date, as well as potential lack of future developments due to the lack of continued Scottish Government funding. Maybe 2.3 is adequate for that, but I mean, just wonder, that's obviously a clear risk in regards to the continuation of sustainability, so maybe take advice for yourself, Chairman.
I think from this side, it's just noting the concerns, and then obviously we as a lobbying council, we actually, help with the lobbying through COSLA and Slade, but it's just to note it at the moment. Stephen?
Yeah, final point on something completely different. Ireland, Dumfries, Kirkcudbright, Lochmaben, New Galloway, Sankar, Stranraer, Whitehorn and Wigton are the former boroughs of Dumfries and Galloway, as far as I know. I'm sure historians will correct me if I've missed something out. It refers to the 4 borough schools. Now, I know what that means in the report, but I think the report's written from a very Dumfries-centric point of view, I think it's a sort of small matter, but I think we need to reflect the fact that we've got representatives from all across the region here, so when we're writing a report, we should write it with that in mind. So it's just a wee point. Thank you.
Can we ensure that's covered in the future? Okay. Jim?
It's just the same point, I was going to raise it anyway, but we're supposed to be trying to deal with deprivation, and it doesn't necessarily exist just in the centre of Dumfries.
Okay. Did you want to come back in, Ian?
And back what Stephen said, I thought just the word Dumfries in front of borough would have been adequate to make the change, and you're identifying exactly what borough you're referring to, but I think Stephen brings up a valid point.
Okay then, well, the members, can we go to the recommendations in? Members, we were asked to note 2.1, note 2.2 and agree 2.3. Stephen?
Sorry, and just with the inclusion that we get circulated with the information in relation to the costs, etc.
That would be the action point. Okay, members, we're now moving on to item number 8. This report seeks members' agreement to the details of the preferred option being progressed for Newton Stewart, and asks members to note the feedback from the recent public engagement event in relation to Newton Stewart Flood Protection Scheme. The Head of Infrastructure and Transportation and Flood team are here. And have you got anything to add to the report, Director and then team?
Nothing to add to the report at this stage, Chair. Thank you.
No, we've got nothing to add at this stage.
Members? Jim?
Thanks, Chair. I'm just seeking an assurance that we are on time to meet the timescale in 319 for completion of the Sparling Bridge.
Yes, currently we're still doing design works for the Sparling Bridge, but we're still looking at the time scales in this paper. Yep.
Graham?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's on the Sparling Bridge as well. Can I have your assurance that the local community, through the Community Council and elected members, will have some input into the design of this Sparling Bridge, or will at least be consulted on it?
Yes, officers from the flood team have met with Sustrans about match funding, and it will be the sort of intention to keep your community up to speed. But obviously, and get their input to any design. But design of bridges sometimes, what's wanted might not fit, but obviously, we'll get looked at, and we certainly took note, issues raised.
Let's come back very briefly. It might not fit, but at least give us a chance to put something into it.
I mean, on the main scheme, we do have another public consultation event scheduled in for April. So what we'll be looking to do then is we'll be presenting the Sparling Bridge ongoing design at that meeting, as we did in December. We sort of put indicative designs of the new bridge and the timescales at the last event, and we'll be doing a similar exercise at this event so people can see and comment on the work.
Would that be in the Macmillan Hall in the town?
Okay, happy with that? There's Ian.
So just Graham's intrigued, and we did talk about it as a group quite a bit. Sparling Bridge came up, the design, the process, I think, in regards to how local members, community councils, so on and so forth, have input in regards to that. So in regards to the decision making, the final design will get put in front of, where does it go? Does it come back to committee? Does it got to be signed off at local members? Have they got to sign it off? I mean, I do think that, will it actually be a plan application? That's another potential. Is it a permittable development right, because we're replacing something that's there? I don't know, but I mean, a wee bit more about that, if we could, Chairman. I'm interested to hear what involvement is in particular I think it's 3 local members, is it 4? 4 local members in that ward. What input do they have in regards to that sign off? Because if for some reason they're not happy with the final design, I would imagine it should really have to come back to committee to be signed off.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, I mean, on that, there is a planning application which has been submitted just now. I don't know if that's gone live yet, but yes, the new bridge will need planning permission, so it'll go through the full process of consultation. With regard to the design, there are limits to the involvement that there can be on the design, because we're set in with sort of Sustrans requirements and the regulations. So we will be bringing back that to committee for the financial side, and we will be involving the community to sort of help us and to deliver a bridge which everybody's happy with.
Yeah.
Sorry for labouring it, but I mean, I think it'd be good to see the local members, they've had their input, and in fact, and if they agree with what's there, I know it's a quasi-judicial, it'll end up in that stage, it started that process, but if it's got signed off by local members, I think it feels far more comfortable for the council to see something like that in front of them.
I'm quite glad you're labouring on things anyway, Ian, but there you go. Graham, you want to come back on?
Yeah, just come back briefly. You said there's a planning application has gone in. If there's a planning application has gone in, there must be a design.
So there is, I mean, there's the design of the bridge, but the planning application doesn't need the full detailed design. There are obviously still sort of changes about, colours and lighting and different matters which can be done on detailed design, but the planning application for the bridge and the initial construction is in, yes.
As long as we haven't missed the boat.
No.
You don't need a boat on a bridge. Jim?
Thanks, Chair. I assume from what we have just heard that the time scale is the end of April and not the beginning.
Yes, I would say the end of April, yep.
Okay, members, can we go to the recommendations? We're asked to agree 2.1, note 2.2, agree 2.3, and note 2.4. Ian?
Just in the back of that discussion, local members' inputs, whether it's an action, whether it's just an inference that we actually, as a committee, we've got an expectation of whether to put in as a formal recommendation. But I would like to get the reassurance for yourself, in particular, Chairman, that way I can come back to a later date if it was to change, but that the local members will get their input, and if for some reason there's no agreement, there's no meeting of minds, which there can sometimes be, that you'll bring it back to committee for us, Chairman.
I think that'll be an action point more than a recommendation, because it's still got to go through process and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Jim?
I very much agree with that, Chair, as long as we're not trying to design it for other consultants.
Each planning application will be based on its own merits at the planning applications committee, and because we will be the applicant, I'll have to come to planning applications committee anyway. Do we agree with the recommendations? Thank you. We now go on to item number 9, which is the Langholm Flood Protection Scheme. The purpose of support is to provide members with details of the recent work undertaken to progress the Langholm Flood Protection Scheme and ask members to approve the next steps to alleviate flooding.
Chair, can we bring the member back in?
Sorry? Oh, sorry. Coming in, Katie. So the purpose of this report is to provide members with details of the recent work undertaken to progress the Langholm Flood Protection Scheme and ask members to approve the next steps to alleviate flooding in Langholm. The Head of Infrastructure and Flood Team are here to take any questions, unless you've got anything to add to it. Director?
Nothing to add, Director. Thank you. Chair, thank you.
No, I've nothing to add.
Thank you. Members? Stephen?
Yeah, it's primarily around the Homewood Drive aspect of the report. Obviously, I'm aware that there's been sort of quite long-standing issues with Homewood Drive, Meagle Homeside, etc. in Langholm. And there's a bit of a relationship needed to be sort of ironed out with the landowners uphill from the flood-affected area or where the water runs. However, I think my question really is around there's a 250k notional figure being put forward in recommendation 2.4. However, I'd like to understand a little bit better about what that would mean in terms of long-term maintenance. Is that something that we're best placed to do, given the resource constraints we're under? Would it mean an acquisition of land? Would it mean, how would that actually work in practice? I can understand the initial spend to carry out works, but where would the ongoing maintenance be? Because that's what really is the killer in terms of flood protection and sort of ongoing flood maintenance.
Brian?
Yeah, well, throughout this process, we've been dealing with the landowner there, and the costs for sort of for works and obviously any future maintenance hasn't really been sort of approached with them. Early indications would be that they would give us use of the land for any works. But it certainly would be a sort of ongoing maintenance issue, and if it was works that we did, we would in my mind have these maintenance issues.
Welcome back, Stephen, and then I'll get you.
Thanks again, Chair. Yeah, so I think that's really where the heart of my concern is. So, obviously I'd want to support anything that's going to alleviate flood damaging concerns to residents. However, it's the role and relationship of the landowner to that, because if we carry out works in good faith and have permission or access granted to do that, then you've just said there that we'd effectively be liable for maintaining those works to ensure, future sort of alleviation of flooding concerns, as it were. So I'm just thinking that's going to be our door that's getting hard on, effectively, when we've got diminishing resources. So I'm just concerned about how that relationship's realistically going to work pragmatically, apart from the initial bit of work and the initial bit of good news. In 10 years' time, 20 years' time, we're going to get pummeled for maybe not clearing ditches or whatever it might be, whatever the solution is.
Right.
Yeah, well, I sort of believe that there's been this sort of prior works done in that area from good faith by council, good sort of 10, 15 years back, and I think these works are probably showing signs of needing maintenance works. So it depends on the impact. If it's impacting on properties and they're starting to flood, would be seen to need to do some sort of action.
Ian?
Thanks a lot, we're on the same point, Chairman. I hadn't really picked up on that particular point. I'd assumed we're constantly told never to assume anything, but I just took it we would have been getting a servitude right away at the same time. I think we should be liable for the maintenance, but that should be part of the negotiations as we go forward. I'd imagine the landowner would be open to that, otherwise it leaves the responsibility to a degree. It could be argued on them, but I think it's important that this piece of work is done, and it's carried out to the best of our ability, but we'll leave it as maintenance free as we possibly can in regards to the design. But I think Stephen brings up an important point where actually, if we're seriously putting something like this level of funding, putting it forward and doing a good job for the folk in Langholm, then we should take the servitude right away, be able to maintain and access that in the future years seriously.
Director?
I think Councillor Crothers has hit it right on the nail. What will be done will be a long-term agreement, a servitude to secure our access to maintain it. Obviously, we would not really go ahead and build anything without that guarantee. So can I assure members that that's what will be looked at?
Okay. Graham?
Thanks, Chair. SEPA flood warning 3.13. New flood warning scheme for the River Esk was introduced by SEPA in March 2017. What kind of timescales? You know, how much warning do people get? Is it an hour, half a day, a day?
Yeah, the sort of warning system there is similar to the River Cree. It gives you 3 hour sort of warning, but obviously these schemes being new need to be sort of verified and checked, and the sort of only way to check these is during high flows. So you know, it will give a 3 hour sort of warning, but you know, it might take a good sort of few years to get it more accurate, I would say.
Thank you.
Without the recommendations, then we're asked to note 2.1, note 2.2, note 2.3, note 2.4, and 2.5, notwithstanding the above, agree 2.5. Happy? Thank you very much. I have no further business. Thank you very much for your input today, and I'll close the meeting. Thank you.